Hi, I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And we're the insiders. So unemployment, unprecedented numbers of claims, even beyond the Great Depression, a backlog of 750,000, a 50-year-old computer system to handle it. Scott, what's your take on it?
Well, I don't think the Evers administration looks good here. I think everybody agrees this was unprecedented, an avalanche of applications for unemployment compensation. But unfortunately, their response was really slow and incremental. When they saw the numbers coming in and they just added a few employees and they redirected a few employees. Then a little bit later, they redirected some more and then they added some more. In the meantime, this avalanche just kept coming and the response was not as strong as the problem was. And so they got so far behind. They should have redirected lots more state employees, thousands of state employees to this task. They should have contracted out with private companies who handle things like fulfillment and customer service to help them through this crisis to get it done. The Department of Revenue regularly does things like that. So there are ways they could have handled this problem. And I think people are not going to forget. In fact, 750,000 people are not going to forget that they didn't get their unemployment compensation check that they needed in March and April until August or September. This one's going to sting for the Evers administration.
Wow, Scott wanted to go right to the partisanship. Let's do that then. A 50-year-old system, which Scott Walker and the Republicans husbanded for 8 years, never did anything to update it. A system where you actually have to turn off one function so you can't take in more applications and turn on a function to be able to process them. If they remember the problem, they're going to remember Republicans who required that everybody have a 1-week waiting period before they collect unemployment, because we all know that people really don't need the money when they go unemployed. That's what the problem was. It's Republican indifference to the people who are suffering when they go on unemployment. It just so happens now that there are 3 million, the Republicans finally relented and said, for a brief period of time, we will not have a 1-week waiting period. Let's see that be permanent. If we see that act of goodwill on the part of Republicans, I'll be happy to talk about what Democrats are doing. But let's face it, Democrats have always been for stronger unemployment, more compensation, and no 1-week waiting period. When you get unemployed, you need every dollar. How dare the Republicans? How dare they even suggest that the Evers administration is more responsible for problems than a group of people who say, no, 1-week waiting period, we've got to have that. Outrageous. That's where we're at if it's a partisan issue that we want to talk about. Now, the other thing is, all right, what are we doing? We're trying to make sure that people get compensation. The great thing that happened from the side of Democrats is Nancy Pelosi insisting that there be additional money beyond regular unemployment compensation, because she realized, as would Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, that we need money pumped back into the economy. And the only way you get that is if you get people who are unemployed with extra dollars. So $600 a week extra. That's the good news that Democrats are delivering. And finally, the Republicans, at least temporarily, won't require that you have a 1-week waiting period.
You know, one of the things I like to do when I see a big challenge in government is think to myself, what would Tommy Thompson do? And Tommy Thompson would have forced all sorts of people from all sorts of agencies to tackle this problem. When I was on his staff, he'd have had us working there late into the night, taking people's phone calls. This phone line shuts down at 3:30. They stopped taking people's calls at 3:30. That's crazy. Tommy would have had us working around the clock to get this done. Heck, he'd have been sitting in the office taking calls themselves and signing the back of checks. This administration's response was slow and incremental to a monumental problem. I agree it was unprecedented, but their response was incompetent.
And Tommy Thompson would have not allowed us to have a 50-year-old system in place. And if he had been around, that system would have been upgraded. And that's what would have made the difference. See you next time, guys.